Well, hello and welcome to Business Morning. This morning is the third trading day of this holiday shortened week. It's the last trading day of May and the last trading day of this week. And I'm sure investors will be rushing into the markets now. We'll definitely check how the volume and value goes at the end of trade today. But let's get a check now on the star commodity. That's oil. We're seeing all futures. They fell more than 1% today. We're on track for their steepest weekly decline since early April, following reports that the U.S. and Iran had reached a potential deal to extend a ceasefire. And we see the impact already in the markets, 1.32% lower. That's for Brent crude, $92.46 a barrel. Yes, we've been getting used to that $100 per barrel level, but it's a big drop. We're now at $92.46. WTI crude, $87.48, losing that $90 level, 1.60% lower. So we're seeing a 10% drop. That's for the whole trading week, the steepest fall since April 6th, while we see WTI has dropped about 9.2%, biggest weekly loss since the week that ended on April 13th. So except there's a miracle today, that's what we're going to see for this trading week. That's for Brent and WTI. All right, two other stories now. Nigeria's refining sector is making global headlines as the Dangote Petroleum Refinery emerges as the world's largest exporter of jet fuel for the month of April. According to a report by S&P Global Energy, the refinery achieved the milestone following disruptions in global fuel supply chains linked to tensions in the Middle East, which increased demand for alternative aviation fuel suppliers. The refinery CEO, Mr. David Bird, says the facility is now operating at near full capacity of about 650,000 barrels per day and has shifted into what he described as max jet mode to meet rising international demand. The development further positions Nigeria as an emerging player in global refined petroleum export, with Dangote Refinery expanding its reach across Africa, Europe, and other international markets. And now we see Nigeria's maritime and petroleum import operations are under fresh scrutiny as the Nigeria Customs Service defends enforcement actions taken against a vessel accused of illegally discharging premium motor spirit at the Tinkan Island port. In a statement, the Customs Service says the vessel, MT NY Maria, allegedly commenced discharge operations at the MRS terminal without obtaining the required customs clearance and while still under official customs seal. Authorities say the vessel arrived from the Dangote Refinery but failed to provide critical documentation, including a mandatory last port clearance certificate. Customs officials insist that their actions were fully backed by the Nigeria Customs Service Act 2023, stressing that no operator within Nigeria's port environment is above regulatory compliance. The service also denied reports that the shipmaster was arrested, clarifying that it was only invited for questioning as investigations continue into the incident alleged obstruction faced by customs officers during enforcement operations. Yeah, there you have it. See the Tinkan Port's security faces scrutiny right there with NCS citing Customs Act violations. So that's the latest one. It's definitely a developing story, and we'll keep tracking that one. All right, two other matters now. African Airlines have seen a 7.7% year-on-year rise in air cargo demand in April this year, and this is according to the latest report released by the International Airport Transport Association. In its global air cargo market data for the month, the global aviation body says the increase reflects sustained growth in freight activity across the continent's aviation sector. IATA attributes overall market performance to a complex operating environment, including geopolitical disruptions in the Middle East, higher fuel and oil prices, and shifting global trade dynamics. And small businesses are the backbone of Nigeria's economy, generating nearly half of the country's GDP and employing almost 9 in every 10 workers. Yet, most of Nigeria's 40 million SMEs have never accessed a single naira of government support, and many do not even know that support exists. Our business correspondent, Willie Bong, has a story of one man who built a business without the system and what that says about Nigeria's economic development challenge. Take a listen.
This work when I need to, it start work before most people they wake up. They enter road before the sun will set.
Walk down any Nigerian street and count the businesses. The suya spot, the welder shop, the provision store, the tricycle at the curb. Nearly every one of them is a small or medium enterprise. Together, all 40 million of them, they guarantee nearly half of everything Nigeria produces. They employ almost 9 in every 10 Nigerian workers. They are not a footnote in this country's economic development story. They are the story. Ochukwu Egoda has been writing that story for 4 years. Today, he runs 3 tricycles.
After I graduated, so I worked in a firm to save money. So when I was working in the firm, that is, the pay was not much. It's just peanuts. They're giving us peanuts. So I save. Okay, after I saved, I said, okay, let me just do business. So I purchased a Marwa.
We employ approximately 80 million people, and we contribute to approximately half of Nigeria's GDP. And so what we want to do is to help our small businesses with 4 key things: all the guidance that they need, all the resources they need, all the opportunities that they need, and all the workforce support to make sure that they can continue to contribute as much as they're doing to Nigeria's GDP and even more.
The numbers tell one story, but behind them, another story entirely.
What we need to do is to understand that the biggest impediment to the growth and profitability and viability of small and medium-scale enterprises is the lack of power. Not just power, quality of power, quantity of power, and they have no access. And when they get power, it's expensive, and when they get it, it's unreliable.
But Nigeria's economic development has a ceiling. And for millions of the businesses holding this economy up, that ceiling is made of credit. Ochukwu built 3 tricycles with no bank loan, no government program, just family, a cooperative, and reinvested earnings. The loan apps were never an option. Word travels fast at the motor park. Some charge interest of up to 50%. He did the maths before they could trap him.
The interest is too much. And if you not pay in those loan apps, they will post your picture everywhere and begin to disgrace you.
The maturity of the banking system, right, has become extreme, is growing but very slowly. The needs and the requirements of this informal and small and medium-scale enterprises is growing much faster than the banking system is willing to transform itself.
Recently, the Central Bank of Nigeria announced that credit disbursement to small businesses hit 199 billion naira in April alone. The Bank of Industry also secured $200 million from the African Development Bank to boost SMEs and women-led businesses. That sounds like progress. But spread across 40 million businesses, the CBN figure alone works out to roughly 5,000 naira each. Ochukwu has never seen a kobo of it.
This loan, I discovered that these things, they are coming in. But those that are in top, they will just hijack those loans and whatever and give it to their cousins and whatever.
We put the reality to the Director General of SMEDEN, Charles Odi.
The biggest problem is not that government is not doing enough, but that the people that government is supposed to be doing it for are not in enough.
40 million small businesses, nearly half of Nigeria's economy. Most of them invisible to the very agencies that are built to serve them. The government has programs. The operators don't know they exist. Bridging that gap is not just a policy question. It's a defining economic development challenge of this country. So, what is the answer?
We may not be able to reach you one-on-one. You can register with your cooperative, just your cluster, your business member organization. We will definitely reach your business member organization. So that's my message to Ochoko.
I've built 3 keke with my own hand, with my family, with my hustle, and with the help of God. No bank help me, no government see me, but we still dey grow. Imagine wetin I fit do if this country really support people like me. We dey carry Nigerians, somebody suppose carry us through.
Will Ibong, Channels Television News.
And now to our first conversation. 3 years after President Bola Tinubu launched sweeping economic reforms, Nigeria's economy is showing signs of stronger government revenue, improving foreign reserves, and stabilizing macroeconomic indicators. But despite those gains, millions of Nigerians continue to battle inflation, rising living costs, and economic hardship. So this morning we examine the real impact of Tinubunomics. Has the administration laid the foundation for long-term economic recovery, or the reforms placing too much pressure on households and businesses? And ultimately, when will ordinary Nigerians begin to feel the benefits of these tough economic decisions? Joining me now to discuss, we have Mr. Mukhtar Mohammed, CEO of Finance with Mukhtar. He joins me right here in the studio. It's great to have you, sir. Good morning.
Good morning, laddie. My pleasure.
Yeah, so we're looking at Tinubunomics.
I like that.
This morning, and it's been quite the ride. 3 years so far, and we have quite mixed data.
Yeah, I like calling it the good, the bad, the ugly.
Yes, the good, the bad, and the ugly. So if we flip over now to see government revenue.
That's the good.
That's a good. That has risen.
That's risen.
That's risen a lot.
Since
when it came to power, it was about 711 billion. That was May 2023. Current level about 3.6 trillion. That's monthly revenue generation. So
yeah, but
I guess
again they will tell you what was the exchange rate at the time they were receiving this amount of money. Even if it was coming in naira, then they will not tell you that the 3 tiers of government, or maybe the state and the local government tell you we are not collecting so much like we used to collect. If we look at by the exchange rate. But when you look at it, you have to also be realistic to ask them that even when the exchange rate was that, you were not collecting dollars, you were collecting naira. So if you look at that, then definitely I think in terms of revenue, we have seen huge revenue for government, huge revenue. But the impact has been very minimal. But again, that's a topic for another day. But I think he has done that well.
So I wonder, because we keep talking about. I remember when where the elections were happening, that period, the sentiment was whoever won that time, be it Peter Obi or whoever, they were all pro-business.
Yeah, they were pro-business, yeah.
Right? And I'm wondering, what else could have been done differently to not have the negatives of these reforms? Seeing that revenue has jumped a lot.
I don't know what they would have done differently, to be sincere. In as much as sometimes we look at the tough decisions, we have to commend the president. He took some very, very tough decisions that took years and years. Nobody was ready to tread that part, especially the removal of subsidy. That was a monster. That was a drilling. That was what was making people multi-billionaire to the detriment of the ordinary Nigerians, or even to the generality of Nigerians, not just the ordinary Nigerian. It took a bold step. Remember that popular statement that the subsidy gone. And it was, I think it's 3 years today we had that statement, because we were made to understand that that was not even in the script. So that tells you the kind of boldness and that the president was able to do. I remember I was on a program that day, and we just saw the price of fuel move from 200 naira to about 800 naira, and everybody thought the whole world would come to an end. But today, here we are even buying fuel at 1,300. So it was a very tough decision he made. But again, you could look back to it. If you're in government, you say it was a good decision. We no more see them quarrel again about how much was paid for federal, for state, how much we're supposed to get, how much was paid to subsidy, how much was going to the federation account, how much is going to NNPC. We no more see them quarrel about that again. So you have to give that to him. I think that was a tough decision, but today, looking back at it, if you're in government, that's why I say in quote, if you're in government, the revenue have improved. But if you're not in Nigeria, it has been a huge struggle to match up with daily living because of the high cost of energy. Both whether you're looking at PMS or you're also looking at electricity. It has been huge.
Do you think that there's a way that would have gone through the whole process of subsidy is gone and somehow had a cushion?
Yes, I think there should have been a way. We've said it over and over. There should have been a way. But again,
do you think we're rich enough, or
no?
Since we're an oil producer, is there a way we'd have?
No, laddie, let us go to oil producing. Oil producing that you have not been able to produce up to 2 million barrels per day. You are shouting oil producer. Before you came into power, don't forget that production was even about 800,000 barrels per day. So we're a country that was producing. We're having so much more oil theft than producing. So we don't have to look at that. At the time he came in, for me, we're not even oil producing at all. I mean, he took the tough decisions. Yes, there was a way. Maybe there would have been a way if it was planned. Like I said, it came up spontaneous. Subsidy is gone, and it took a lot of his team by storm. Nobody else. So there was no consistency plan. Even if, don't forget, even if President Buhari at that time have said that they only have enough to pay till the end of June. So ordinarily we're expecting that subsidy will be gone by June ending. But he took that bold step May 29, 1 month before that tenure. So maybe there would have been a consistency plan in terms of seeing how that could have and mitigate the impact on the ordinary Nigerians. But don't forget that the longer you delay such processes, the more we have seen that it will not be taken. So I think he knew that if I don't say this now, we start working on it, we will not get there. So I think there was no other. Remember, like you said, even during his campaign, Atiku Abubakar said he will remove subsidy. Peter Obi said subsidy will be gone. But there may have been a different method. Maybe Peter Obi is telling us that if he has gotten to power, he would have waited for 3 months, he would have put a lot of things in place before he would remove subsidy. But don't forget that at the time Buhari was leaving, when Tinubu took over, Nigeria was broke. We were practically borrowing to pay subsidy. At that time he came in, the federation account, both the state, the local government, and the federal have not had any dime from NNPC. So I wonder how we would have been able to do that.
So I guess what you're saying is regardless who won.
Regardless who won, we would have had this issue. Maybe we would have even had it tougher. Because again, if you want to play to the gallery of the people, and that's what we have been doing for the past 15 years, that's why we never...
I wish we had some kind of AI simulation that would simulate all of this.
I like saying something. If you are due for surgery 15 years ago, when you were younger, you didn't do the surgery, and you're doing the surgery 15 years after, of course the pain will be much, because your body system is not like it used to be 15 years ago. So the pain we are suffering now is based on the decision we did not accept 15 years ago.
Right. All right, there's still more of the good.
Yeah.
Foreign reserves. External reserves, when he came to power, were 35.09 billion. There was a steady decline in the foreign reserves. Now, the last data shows $49.26 billion. So we've been hovering around this level.
We always been, remember that when that data came up, was the foreign reserve that we are having there was based on both on borrowing, the one we're supposed to pay or whatever put together. Remember that time? At the real reserve we had at that time people were saying it was about $3 billion. Remember that conversation?
I remember that conversation.
Around that, was the real reserve compared when you remove all.
We're looking for net and all of that.
Exactly.
Right.
So, if you look at the foreign reserve, I mean, they have done well. Look, I mean, I need to say they have done well. Why? When they came in, they had those issues. Remember, exchange rate, they were not ready to defend the currency. The currency moved as high as almost 2,000. People were even saying we'll get to exchange rate of 5,000 naira to $1. We saw the panic. We saw they themselves also were panicking. Today, Bureau de change, adhere tomorrow, they revoke the license, next tomorrow you come. So there was a lot of panic, but I think you have to give it to the CBN. They held their nerve. They went through the process. Today, even if exchange rate is not what it was when they came to power, you can see there is stability.
Stability.
There is no more round tipping. There's no more that back end whereby if you are close to government, you have that differential rate. If you are you remember that time you are going to hash, you had exchange rate at 350 for going to hash, and the people that are doing business, we have exchange rate at 700 and something. But people that are going to go to hash, government will give them. There was so much, and when you look at the trial of the current former CBN governor, you realize that so much happened. There was wastage. But I think they have closed that gap. The market, you remember when they came in, the CBN said, we want to make the Naira competitive. And that has happened. Now they said, after making the Naira competitive, they said, we want to make the Naira stable. Now the Naira is stable. It may not be this kind of stability we want, but remember I said it in your program, there was time you asked me that, when will we see that we have had stability in the exchange rate? And I told you then that when they will tell me to use my Naira card and pay for dollar transaction, I said that is when.
We didn't have that for the longest time.
We didn't have it.
Right.
It's happening now. Now the banks are even, you can see that different banks have different rates. I remember then I said, why was the CBN shying of getting banks involved in the FX market? But today banks are involved. There's a lot awash with liquidity. You see the exchange rate between if you have to use your Naira card, and if you even have to go to the Bureau de change, you realize that you just use your Naira card, it's cheaper. So there's so much liquidity in the system in terms of dollar liquidity.
Right.
And don't forget that the current recapitalization of the banking sector also drive a lot of FX into the market. So kudos to them.
Okay, so another thing, I remember that period. I remember I was, when we were doing the coverage, of the elections, I was tracking the stock market. That time, we're around about 55,000 for the all-share index, 55,000 points. And I was seeing steady rise. That period, the bulls, came in full force. And now we've crossed a new high. We're at new highs at this point, over 200,000 points. So it's been quite the run so far since May 2023. I don't know if you expected this amount of bullishness on the stock market.
Never. Nobody embraces it. Nobody, because no administration have come in from the era of President Olusegun Obasanjo to Shehu Musa Yar'Adua to Goodluck Ebele Jonathan and to Muhammadu Buhari. In short, Muhammadu Buhari, 8 years, was the worst year of the stock exchange. If you calculate that 8 years of Muhammadu Buhari, the only stock exchange only gained, if you look at it, they only performed better 2 years out of 8 years. But when you look at what the president has done, I keep saying it, if there's any area, is there any policy that hit the ground running, it was the policy that drive the stock market. The stock market is the only economic barometer that you said has benefited more on the economic reform of President Tinubu. That's why people say the reform is more for the rich than for the poor.
So it's more for the rich because the man on the street not really getting, not making money from
they don't even have the money
this bull run.
No, they don't even have it because they have been thinking to survive. But if you look at the bullish run of the market, nobody saw it coming. And what drove that bullish run was the two things: liberalization of the FX market and removal of subsidy. Basically, that what drove the bill. Then came the reform, the banking sector recapitalization and others. It has been one of the nobody can tell me they saw it coming. We as much as we agree that the policy was going to be good, we never saw it coming. And laddie, guess what? This is not driven by new listing. It's driven by capital appreciation of existing stocks. It was not like, the exchange was driven because you have new listing. So it's not, so by the time you have the Dangote listing before the end of the year, and by the time we are talking about when it's going next year, you might see the ocean index triple or quadruple. So I think for the stock market, the brokers.
So that's the brightest spot.
That's the brightest spot. Everybody will be
right.
excited, but even if there were a dark side of it, that you remember the capital gain tax.
Right.
That was also the dark side of it.
All right, let's look at some of the ugly now. Public debt. Public debt. He inherited 87 trillion naira in public debt, but the current level now 159.28 trillion.
That's one thing you cannot.
We've racked up a lot of debt.
No, debt has gone up. It's gone up dramatically. I mean, it's high. I mean, it takes generations to pay off those debts. I'm telling you. And you know the annoying thing about some of these debts is that this administration might not even pay up to 10% of those debts. So just like this administration is struggling to pay the debt of previous administration.
So I guess it's the same old trend.
It's the same old trend.
Debts.
But what we have seen is that governments have remained governments. They have not think out of the box. They have not been innovative. Greater economy, best economy in the world, the United States, the United Kingdom, the Chinese economy, the EU, they realize that government does not have enough to meet up infrastructural development. They key into the PPP. Why is Nigerian government shy away from the PPP? Why should government be building the coastal road? If it has that economy variable to pass through 7 states, why can't you give it build and operate? Why should government even put money in Lagos-Ibadan Expressway? It's one of the most busiest highway in Nigeria. Why didn't you give it to private sector to build and operate and earn revenue? And you just concentrate on social investment, healthcare, education. I'm not impressed when it comes to debt services. I think it's the worst. But again, when you look at when he came in, debt services to budget was about 90%. We are seeing it come down to 60%. But it's still huge because now it's coming down to 60% because they are not servicing their own debt yet. So when the new administration comes in, by the time they start servicing their own debt, then the debt servicing to budget will go high. So for me, that is one area that the APC government, now, APC government, I'm not saying about PDP government or what, I'm talking about the APC government, from the advent of Buhari till now, has taken Nigeria deep into more debt than we've ever thought we would.
Right. All right. A spot that's supposed to also be bright, GDP growth.
Yeah.
The growth trend is supposed to be bright. But if you look at it, if you zoom out, you know, our latest 3.85%. But normally, 3% was considered low. But we're celebrating.
We used to do 7% before.
Exactly.
Before,
so it's ugly.
You know, sometimes the story is like the story of the children of Israel. When the old men saw the temple, they were crying, and the young men were rejoicing. So it's sort of the same thing that we are seeing here. A lot of people are happy because why are they happy? Because at a point we're doing 1 point something, so coming to 3 point something was a huge achievement. Almost
which was supposed to be your previous low.
Now becoming highs. Yeah, I think the GDP growth. We have to also say that some of those things were beyond them in terms of global economic trend that affected the economy. But by and large, we've not seen the kind of GDP growth that we've ever seen before. And like I said, when you talk about GDP growth in Nigeria, you're talking about Nigerian output to the world. And if you look at our output, it's always in the oil and gas sector. And if you look at that sector struggling to meet up in terms of OPEC quota even, you shouldn't be surprised that. So that's why a call for celebration. But when you look at our GDP growth, you realize that the positive in here, and that's why it's low, is largely driven by non-oil sector. Non-oil sector is now doing sometimes up to 80 to 90% of our general GDP, GDP growth, adding more to the GDP growth than the oil and gas sector. But when you look at the effects driven in by the non-oil sector, even the 7 or 10% that are coming from the oil sector is above it. So that is a major challenge. You could see that they are trying to expand the economy to make the economy, not monotonous economy that depends on one area, but you need capital input from your main source to be able to develop other sources. And that main source is struggling because of oil theft. Right.
Okay, so I guess that's it. And obviously there's more. You know, we're still looking for multi-dimensional poverty data, because the last time we had that, 133 million Nigerians were multi-dimensionally poor. We don't have the latest one. I'm sure at some point we should get that, but it seems like it'll be higher. You know.
Like the one thing we need to say, if you want to rate them based on where they're coming from, what they saw, and where they're coming to, you also comment their boldness, but also you also see that there's a lot of work to do. So if I have to rate them over 10, I'll say they'll get 6 over 10. But again, the remaining 4 that we are giving them 10 is huge, because that is the 4 that affect the ordinary Nigerians, and that's what is driving the hardship in the land.
Right. Definitely, we hope the hardship ends soon enough. All right, let's pivot now. This is the last trading day of this week, of this month.
Yeah.
And so far, for May, we're up about 3.3%. But we're coming from an April that had a 20% rise for the whole share index. I guess they sold in May and went away.
I think what we saw in May, what we saw was, you remember, results were coming in. We had a lot of expectation, and that expectation was not met. So we saw in the month of May, because the expectation was not met in some banking stock in the payment of dividend. You saw a bank like Access, like UBA, so that affected the sentiment, the negativity. Then you now saw the fixed income space became a little bit attractive with the yield. So a lot of investors were now exiting, especially those stocks that they were thinking were traditionally dividend-paying stocks. So they were now exiting the market to go to the fixed income space. So we're not surprised what happened in the month of May, because that was a lot of portfolio reshuffling after that high that we saw at the beginning and towards it. So, but again, it creates an opportunity for bankers holders also to get into the market. And remember, at that time, there's always a slowdown already, because the pension fund administrators were already there. They were not acquiring more. But again, I think, like I jokingly tell people, if you look at the All-Share Index, what it has been able to do this year already, if we end the year like this, the stock market has performed well, because it has even gone way above inflationary pressure. But there's still a lot of value in a lot of stocks in the market. There's a lot of fundamental of the market is still very strong. Even those stocks that a lot of people were exiting because they didn't pay the dividend, if you look at their fundamentals, if you look at their balance sheet, realize that it's not poor. It was a regulatory induced policy that So
technically, it's not like I didn't want to pay.
No.
All
of
them were tied.
My hands were tied, because the regulators felt that we need to tighten. We need to make sure that we don't have the balls, especially when you have those capital that you have raised. So I think that's what really happened. Because if you look at their earning per shares, it was still comfortable for them to pay dividends. If you look at their holding companies, it was a bank like Access, they have that power to be able to pay, even if it is 1 naira or 2 naira. If you look at even UBA, they still have their earning per share was still strong, but the CBN was looking at other variables in terms of what is your profit after tax. What largely drove your profit after tax? Was it driven by FX devaluation, or was it really driven by your core businesses? I think that's what they were looking. They're looking at your capital adequacy ratio, looking at your loan book. The non-performing loans were huge. So those were part of the things the CBN were looking at. Remember, a lot of banks, the CBN have told them to exit forbearance. So all these, they have to make provisions for some of these things. So that was what really affected the bank. But those banks still have very strong fundamental going forward. It could just be a struggle now, but I can confidently say those banks will recover, especially a bank like Access and UBA. It's just a matter of time. They will definitely recover.
All right, we'll definitely be looking out for that. We've covered a lot of ground today. Thank you so much, Mr. Mukhtar Mohammed. Always a delight having these conversations with you, and I guess I'll see you in the next trading month.
Yes, smiling like this.
Yes. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. All right, we'll take a break now. When we come back, AFDB meetings are ending today, I believe. We'll discuss what's played out so far. Look at Africa's energy gap. That's in a moment. Do stay with us. All right, as Africa races to expand electricity access and transition to cleaner energy, financing remains one of the continent's biggest challenges, from climate finance and high borrowing costs to private sector investment and the role of institutions like the African Development Bank. The big question is no longer whether Africa needs an energy transition, but who will pay for it? Joining me now to discuss, we have Patricia Mbogo, Executive Director, Access Coalition, joins me via Zoom from Nairobi. It's great to have you on the show. Good morning.
Yeah, thank you, Dad, for having me here.
Fantastic. So I know you, I believe you were in Congo, Brazzaville for the AFDB meetings. Run me through your experience so far earlier in the week at the meetings.
Yeah, it's a pleasure to be here this morning and also to join you online, discussing about what is happening in Brazzaville with the AFDB annual meetings. We have been following up with the discussions that are ongoing, both drives and also the discussions that were done at the pre-tests ahead of the meetings. And what I would say is that we are still in crisis through our energy access gap. And as an Access Coalition, if you allow me just to speak about the work that we do, we are currently prioritizing on transforming the energy financing architecture, on how it is being done and who is being involved and where the financial flows are moving the capital from one side to the other. We have over 600 million people without electricity in Africa today, in today's context, and 900 million people without access to clean cooking solution. So for us, we have been calling more for highly concessional financing and grant mechanisms to allow us to be able to reach to the poorest of the households in Africa. If you look into the current context, we have over 2 trillion USD that has been globally invested in energy access, but only 2% that has been flowing to Africa. Then it leaves us with a lot of energy gap in regard to what needs to be invested for us to reach out to the households. So today's context, I would want to raise a number of issues that we have highlighted in regard to what we have seen. And in recognition to your previous discussion around the issues of debt, is that Africa is borrowing to transform itself from energy poverty. And we cannot be able to achieve much if everything that we do, trying to transform the households, the institutionals, we have to borrow so that we can be able to access energy access. And this is more about reliable energy that can be able to transform lives, more on the productivity, looking on the productive energy use, both at the household level, institutional level. A lot of financing that has been flowing to Africa, they are more commercially led, because that is where you have the right touch in regard to what a dollar can be able to achieve. And it is easy to manage the commercially viable vehicles, financing vehicles that has been prioritized. But there is a lot of population that you are leaving behind. And by 2030, if we are not taking care of ourselves, we still have a lot of populations being left behind. And we need inclusivity, looking into our governance systems, both at the multilateral development banks, where now we have the Mission 300, that is a global initiative that has been coined by AFDB and the World Bank, and there are other development partners that are also collaborating in it. So if Mission 300 has to realize its mandate and its goal, we have to ensure that the governance of it is more inclusive, and all the stakeholders, including the civil society organizations, are well incorporated. They are not part of recipients of the information, but they become part of the decision makers into what today needs to be prioritized.
Okay. All right. So, definitely funding, that's a very big issue there when it comes to Africa financing its energy gap. But, many African countries are rich in, renewable energy potential. So why is investment still not flowing at the scale needed?
Yes, thanks, Ladi. The reason why we, despite the vast resources that we have on renewable, the weighted cost of us to be able to use the resources, the renewable resources that we have, is very high. and hence we continue borrowing so that we can be able to put in the infrastructure that is needed. And hence, for us to be able to use the vast resources, we also need to prioritize on the decentralized renewable energy systems that will be able to reach out to the poorest and to the marginalized communities. Commercially led approaches will only lead to a few, and so we'll be investing so much in terms of enhancing the already existing infrastructure rather than reaching to those who are already left behind with the current connections. And for today, a connection alone will not be able to transform might be anticipating to reach out by 2030. We need more decentralized renewable energy systems that are able to transform lives both at the household level, where the farmers, for example, the poorest of the farmers, they can be able to use the energy to be able to transform agriculture, to be able to use it for powering businesses to improve their livelihoods at that level. So much of it is more of grid enhancement, and our call to date is for the Mission 300 to realize there's more that it can be able to achieve. A connection alone will not be able to transform the lives that we are seeking, but we need to go beyond a connection, track the impact of what that connection facilitates, both at the household level, institutional level, and looking into the national infrastructure altogether, because even the grid, if it is not reliable, we also have people suffering because of the blackouts that African nations have been experiencing. So for us to be able to utilize our vast resources, we need to ensure that the financing that is flowing to Africa is going to the right solutions. And this is more on the decentralized renewable energy systems, prioritize on the clean cooking solutions, and also transfer skills, and also ensure that solutions that we are cascading down to the grassroots, the communities are part and parcel of it. We should not be able to decide what is right for them, but let the communities decide what is right for them. They know the need, so we need to come from an end user perspective in regard to the financing approaches that we are using, rather than top-down approaches, so that the transformation that we are seeking is more embedded and inclusive, and the communities feel part and parcel of it. Okay.
All right, so there's a debate that the biggest obstacle to Africa's energy transition is either technology, or financing, or maybe both at this point. But looking at the meetings, had this week, still ongoing, the AFDB meetings this week in Brazzaville, what kind of solutions were provided, during this meeting?
Yeah, I would say there's a lot of goodwill from the AFDB annual meetings and from the discussions that I've had, of the ongoing discussions at the Brazzaville, and also the past of the meetings that we have attended as civil society organization. There's that call to action for the communities to be able to influence in regard to where the financial are flowing. AFDB has committed to reach out now to the last mile connectivity, but the wish list of it is for us to be able to see how do we move from here, because at this point it's more of the statements, it's more of the declarations that are being read, there's mobilization of the resources, there's mobilization of who needs to get into the fold for them to be part and parcel of the stakeholders to be engaged. And whereas we see the statistics, which are very glaring in regard to what is needed, we need now to see the capital flowing to the right solution and to the right countries, not necessarily where the commercially led markets are more enhanced. The private sector, for example, will be able to invest where they know that their investments are more risk averse, but we need the government also to come in to be able to de-risk the end users in regard to the financing that needs to be cascaded more on the subsidized and also grant-based financing.
All right, definitely. We'll keep tracking solutions provided and actions, taking after, these meetings. Thank you so much for joining us today. Patricia Mbogo, Executive Director, Access Coalition. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you.
All right, I'll just take a quick story now. We see Nigeria's Minister of Aviation, Aerospace Development, Mr. Festus Keyamo, has attended a high-level dialogue session with the African Development Bank in Brazzaville, Congo, as African champion of the Integrated Aviation Transformation Program. Mr. Keyamo highlighted opportunities in the AFDB's $7 billion aviation initiative and unveiled Nigeria's renewed aviation agenda, including plans for a new aircraft leasing company. The minister also signed a letter of intent between Nigeria and the AFDB to support the implementation of the aviation transformation program across Africa. All right, we'll take a moment now. When we come back, we'll find out what's happening in the global economy. That's in a moment. Just stay with us.
Now we begin with the United States and Iran. They've agreed to a tentative deal to extend the ceasefire by 60 days and continue talks on Tehran's nuclear program. That's according to a source familiar with the matter. Now, President Donald Trump has yet to approve the terms, even as both sides signal cautious progress towards a wider agreement. Now, while hopes are rising that the 3-month conflict may be nearing resolution, previous negotiations have repeatedly been stalled. Now look at markets now. Let's check in where all 3 major indexes in the U.S. closed at record highs yesterday, boosted by a technology rally. Yes, Maria with the highlights.
U.S. inflation did not stop the stock market's rally on Thursday as the Dow Jones inched up at 0.05%, while the S&P 500 was up at 0.58%, and the heavy tech Nasdaq led the way at 0.91%. Many investors were watching the movement between the U.S. and Iran and the potential deals, and also this could mean a reduction in oil prices, which would be a positive sign for the U.S. economy, as many parts of the U.S. economy have been stretched thin as oil prices have been escalating. As investors continue to watch, there could be potential for a rally even on Friday, as only time will tell how the markets will respond to this geopolitical climate that currently looks to be coming to a deal in the near future.
Thank you, Mario. Only time will tell. Now, France's inflation rate has accelerated to its highest level in more than 2 years, driven largely by rising energy costs linked to ongoing geopolitical tensions. Data shows price pressures continuing to build across key sectors, with energy and services leading the increase, while food inflation remains more contained. The latest reading adds to concerns across the Eurozone, where central banks are closely watching inflation trends as they weigh the timing of future interest rate moves. Next up, Japan's central bank is likely to raise interest rates in June, according to a former Bank of Japan board member. And the outlook reflects expectations that inflation and wage growth are gradually becoming more sustainable in Japan's economy. Markets are now watching for signals from the BOJ as it considers the pace of its policy normalization. Now, NVIDIA is increasing investment in photonics technology to improve the speed and efficiency of AI data centers. The company is backing optical and laser-based systems designed to move large volumes of data faster while reducing energy use. Analysts say photonics could become a key technology supporting the next phase of global AI growth. Now, see, Samsung has begun shipping samples of its HBM4E high-bandwidth memory chips to customers. The new high-bandwidth memory is designed for faster data transfer and improved energy efficiency, making it suitable for large-scale AI data centers and high-performance computing. The move highlights growing competition in the global AI chip market. And we see Blue Origin New Glennon rocket exploded during a hot fire test in Florida, dealing a fresh setback to Jeff Bezos' space company as it competes with Elon Musk's SpaceX. The explosion happened during ground testing ahead of a planned satellite mission, sending a massive fireball across the launch site. No injuries were reported. The incident raises new questions about Blue Origin's launch timeline and its growing role in NASA's Artemis moon program and commercial satellite business. Finally, shares of LG Electronics climbed sharply after the company unveiled new automotive products powered by Google technology. Investors reacted positively to the company's push into connected car systems and AI-driven mobility solutions aimed at the fast-growing smart vehicle market. Development highlights intensifying competition among tech and electronics firms seeking a larger role in the future of connected and autonomous vehicles. And that's your Global News Brief. I'm Will Ibang.
All right, thank you, Will. Well, the markets are buzzing in this final trading day of May. We see Bitcoin up about 0.29%. The DXY, that's the dollar index, in positive territory. Gold is in positive territory, and definitely we're seeing all of that because oil is down, still down at this point. But for the NGX, it's opening this holiday shortened week at a close here at about 9 basis points lower. TIP, that's the initiates leading attention there. Dangote Sugar, Access Holdings. We'll bring you more updates by 1:30 on Business Incorporated. And hopefully, in the month of June, you make back all the RAM money you spent this period. Thank you for watching Business Morning. I'm Ladi Williams. Bye for now.